We're starting this video off with the lowest effort meal prep. Mini meal prep, as I like to call it, is the only cooking hack I actually subscribe to. When I take just 30 minutes to prep a few condiments or flavor boosters early in the week, putting together gourmet meals becomes, well, kinda easy. And that's really the theme for this week's menu. Big flavor, feel-good summer meals that don't require hours of effort or tons of fuss. Basil is in season right now, so I started this week off by making my vegan basil pesto. Italian folks, please don't come for me in the comments. I know Parmigiano Reggiano is traditional, as is using a mortar and pestle, but I'm vegan, and a food processor is all I have time for today. Plus, this stuff ends up being really, really delicious. And it's a good example of an everything sauce, the kind of condiment that makes everything better. Use it as a sauce for pasta or a dressing for salads, drizzle it over lentils or beans or tofu. It's good however you use it. And it takes 10 minutes to make, so there's really no excuse to not try it. I followed up the pesto by making the simplest chili oil. It uses just 2 ingredients, Aleppo pepper and extra virgin olive oil. The reason I like to use Aleppo pepper instead of your standard red pepper flakes is that it's milder in heat, so it's more versatile. It's not gonna blow off the roof of your mouth, but it also has a more complex flavor profile. It's fruity, tart, rich, and slightly smoky. And it's super simple to make. Both ingredients go into a small saucepan and simmer at the lowest heat possible. The goal is tiny, slow bubbles so you don't burn the chili flakes. After 3 minutes, I transferred it to a clean jar. You can store this chili oil in the fridge for a week or 2. If you want to store it at room temperature, you need to use a properly sterilized jar so nothing gets funky or moldy. And for my baby mouths, I know you're probably thinking, this isn't for me, but it's actually pretty mild, so use responsibly and you'll be just fine. The final component I prepped was whipped tofu. Like the last 2 recipes, it uses just a few ingredients and it comes together very quickly. I'll be the first to admit that tofu is super bland on its own, but this recipe is a great example of how you can turn this healthy plant protein into something actually craveable. I started by adding some garlic to my food processor so it can mince up very quickly, and then crumbled in a block of extra firm tofu. There's no need to press the tofu for this recipe, which is great. Next, I added 2 superstar ingredients that add layers of savoriness. My good friend Nooch and some white miso. If you've never used miso before, I really recommend seeking it out. It's fermented, so it will last a long time in your fridge, and it is really versatile. Lemon zest and lemon juice give this a bright, zippy tang, and extra virgin olive oil makes this rich and luxurious. And of course, our good friends, salt and pepper. This texture is looking so good. So this mini meal prep took me less than 30 minutes to make, which is pretty incredible. And now I have these 3 amazing condiments that can be used in lots of different ways during the week. Max and I actually have date night tonight, but I am looking forward to putting these condiments to work starting tomorrow. The next morning, I woke up hungover as hell. Just kidding, I'm in my 1 glass of wine per social outing era, so I'm fine. But I was hungry, so I whipped up a batch of my tofu scramble. Admittedly, I am a little biased, but I think it is miles better than your standard bland tofu scramble, and a lot of you seem to agree. I've gone into detail about all the steps of this recipe in past videos, so be sure to check those out, but I do want to quickly mention a few secret weapons in this recipe. First, among the spices, I use kala namak, aka Indian black salt. It gives the scramble a shockingly eggy flavor. Second, a generous tablespoon of tahini. You can't taste the tahini, but when you combine it with the 3rd secret weapon, creamy oat milk, it brings a level of richness that you might find in scrambled eggs, but rarely get in tofu scramble. This scramble is good enough to eat plain, but in keeping with the theme of easy gourmet meals, I added some of the pesto I prepped yesterday and sliced up a few cherry tomatoes to take it over the top. How beautiful and delicious does this look? Yum! It's a million degrees outside, so I'm gonna enjoy this in the cold darkness of my house, and I'll see you for lunch. When lunchtime rolled around, I decided to make a zucchini salad. 1, because I have a lot of zucchini to use up, and 2, I'm on a mission to change the narrative that zucchini is boring. When you buy zucchini locally and in season, and you pair it with some big flavors and richness, it is actually phenomenal. To make the salad more filling, I roasted some chickpeas until they were beautifully golden brown and crispy. While those roasted, I started slicing up the zucchini. I basically did a julienne cut, but I wasn't too precise about it. I like these skinny, bite-sized pieces because I'm keeping the zucchini raw, and these pieces will absorb the dressing better. Plus, these are just more fun to eat in a salad. I also made a crunchy herby topping for the salad. I chopped up some roasted pistachios, sliced up a few handfuls of fresh basil and mint, and mixed those together with some lemon zest, and a dusting of the best finishing ingredient, flaky sea salt. I had some vegan feta in the fridge, so I also added some of that, but I bet a dollop of that whipped tofu would be pretty great here instead.
I'm literally shook by how delicious raw zucchini can be. It's supposed to be for Max and I, but I'm easily going to eat it all. So sorry, Max. I'll make you another bowl later.
That afternoon, I headed to my favorite place, my local farmer's market. Because I'm a recipe developer, I'm often cooking out of season since I need to test things months in advance. But when I have the opportunity, I try to cook as seasonally as possible, especially in the summer when there are just so many amazing options. The produce just tastes way better and it's fresher because it hasn't traveled very far. I picked up some fresh corn, a whole bunch of peaches, some berries, and of course, tomatoes.
So I was gonna cook something using all the farmer's market goodies I just got, but then I remembered my favorite vegan sushi places here, so I might have to go check out what they have today. You wanna say hi to YouTube?
Hi YouTube!
This guy makes the best vegan sushi. Best sushi ever, vegan or not.
For breakfast the next morning, I had an enormous bowl of fruit, which is something I do in summer not infrequently because the fruit is just so good and I cannot help myself. So by the time lunch rolled around, I was in the mood for something a bit heartier. And this is one of my go-to 5-minute lunches in summer. I grabbed a slice of whole wheat seeded sourdough from my local bakery and added a few generous dollops of the creamy whipped tofu from meal prep, as well as some heirloom tomatoes. This tomato was yellow, but somehow also pink, which I found extremely delightful. A little flaky salt and black pepper, and this would be fantastic as is, but you know what made it even better? Homemade pesto. I also thought it might be nice to try this with chili oil, so I made another one for Max, because sharing is caring.
Wow. Oh, I don't think the chili oil can beat this one. It's perfect. We'll give it a try. Okay. Also very good, but the pesto is the best. The besto?
That's super good. Tomato in my tooth now. Pesto, clear winner.
The besto, right?
I'm gonna go with the chili oil. You changed my mind.
Okay, so hopefully by now you are starting to see that if you prep a few components at the start of your week, you can set yourself up to eat incredible quality meals without that much work. I feel so strongly about this approach that I devoted an entire section to it in my new cookbook. There are over 50 high-impact condiment recipes in the book. My favorite one might be the life-changing homemade chili crisp, because it is actually life-changing, but there are so many good ones to choose from. On top of that, there are also big flavor, easy-to-swap proteins, grains, and vegetables that you can mix and match into delicious weeknight meals. Big Vegan Flavor comes out officially September 3rd, but you can pre-order it now, and if you do pre-order it, you will be eligible to receive some amazing bonus content that I will be announcing very, very soon. We had friends coming over that evening, so I wanted to throw together a fancy, but low-stress sharing plate to serve alongside some pre-dinner drinks. I started off this dish by breaking down 2 beautiful red bell peppers. Yellow or orange peppers would also be lovely here, but you already know how I feel about green peppers. They are not welcome in the chat. And I added a pint of cherry tomatoes. The golden ones are particularly sweet, so I recommend those if you can. I grated a few garlic cloves right in here to give the vegetables a little little kick, and sprinkled in some dried oregano. One of my ultimate simple tips for easy gourmet meals is to just dress your vegetables in good quality olive oil and vinegar. I used red wine vinegar here, but I bet balsamic vinegar would also work well. And of course, some salt and pepper. While these marinated and the flavors got cozy together, I got a pot of lentils going. These are French green lentils, which are my go-to for salads because they hold their shape well and they have this lovely peppery flavor. They need about 17 to 18 minutes at a decent simmer to get al dente. I grabbed some leftover fresh basil and mint because I thought they would pair amazingly well with the tomatoes and peppers. And to serve this, I smeared on a generous amount of the whipped tofu onto a platter and drizzle on some chili oil. I made a last-minute decision to sneak in a few handfuls of arugula because I have a lot of it, and well, it's good for you. It was looking a little dry though, so I scooped out some of the juices and dressing that had collected at the bottom of the bowl and spooned that right on. The lentils had cooled down a bit, so I added those as well before adding the tomatoes and peppers themselves. It was so easy to put together because I already had the whipped tofu and the chili oil in my fridge. And today all I did was chop up some vegetables, cook a pot of lentils, but it is so freaking good. It is phenomenal, better than most things you'd get at a restaurant. So definitely make this for your friends and family this summer. They're gonna think you are a Michelin star chef. For breakfast the next morning, I settled on a fruit and yogurt bowl, but you know, a little more elevated and gourmet. I tossed some strawberries, blackberries, and bloobs with a tiny bit of this really good aged balsamic vinegar, a little maple syrup, and some orange zest. I spooned that over some of this vegan Greek yogurt, which I used because honestly, it's high in protein, and I added a little last-minute addition of fresh mint to the berries, which I highly recommend, and sprinkled on some toasted walnuts and a nice drizzle of tahini for those healthy fats.
Oh, look at that. Nice.
The mint and the maple syrup and the orange zest and the balsamic really make this interesting. I am not someone who would enjoy like plain yogurt, plain berries, and walnuts for breakfast. It's like not in my wheelhouse. But this is actually quite interesting, and I might add it into my rotation more often. We'll see. For lunch, I had some leftover tofu scramble, but I served it a little differently today. I reheated the scramble and tossed in some chopped baby spinach for good measure, and I plated it over some leftover rice that was hanging out in my fridge. I spooned on the chili oil and added some roasted sesame seeds, and it might not look amazing, but this was actually pretty fantastic, and I would eat this every day for lunch. My parents invited us over for dinner later that night, and even though they always have food to feed me, sometimes too much, I still wanted to make a dish for them to say thank you. I decided to go with the Indian spiced charred corn salad from my new cookbook. The head note for this recipe in the book is dedicated to my father, who loves any kind of corn salad. I tried to read the dedication to him a few weeks ago, but I ended up bawling my eyes out, so I thought it was safer for everyone if I just made the recipe for him instead. After I shaved the corn kernels from the cobs, I pan-fried them in some oil in a cast iron skillet. You could also grill the corn cobs whole if you have an outdoor grill. Once the corn was looking nicely charred in spots, I set it aside and started working on the rest of the salad. I chopped up some fresh mint and cilantro for some herby freshness, and I really love these flavors with corn, and thinly sliced a few scallions. I tossed the white and light green parts right into the salad, but reserved the dark green tops for later. And because a little heat is so good in a corn salad, I also finally chopped up a jalapeno pepper. For some zingy bite, I grated in some garlic and added the zest and juice of a lime. And because this is an Indian-inspired corn salad, I added a few Indian spices: cumin, coriander, cardamom, and garam masala. Finally, some olive oil to balance the acidity and the spices, and a handful of roasted peanuts for some nice crunch. This is so freaking good. I cannot wait to serve it to my parents. I'm pretty sure they're gonna love it.
How are you guys?
Good, good.
Yeah. So this is cauliflower rice.
Oh, thank you.
We gotta start a cooking show with just you.
No. Spiced corn salad, Indian style.
Yeah.
They don't do too much Indian. You know, you'll turn off all these white boys. Wonderful. Can I finish all?
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to this.
How much do you want?
The whole thing.
Okay, is this good or you want more?
No. Thank you.
My parents ended up loving the corn salad, but my dad, in classic dad style, declared it was not spicy enough and added sriracha. No surprises here. The next morning for breakfast, I had some of the leftover whipped tofu on toast with heirloom tomatoes for a late breakfast lunch hybrid situation. It was just as good as the first time, and I will never get tired of eating this in summer. So I have a TV appearance coming up to promote my new cookbook, and one of the dishes the station asked me to make is my vegan brown butter peach cobbler. It has been a while since I've made this particular one, so I just wanted to re-familiarize myself with it, make sure it's all good and I don't make any mistakes. Also, a cobbler, by the way, the perfect summertime dessert. They are so much easier compared to making pie, and compared to making cake, there's less room for error. Plus, stone fruit is arguably the best summer fruit. My peach cobbler also has a half cup of blueberries, arguably summer's other best fruit, and I like to marinate both of them in brown sugar, plus cinnamon, ginger, cardamom, and nutmeg for about 30 minutes, so they get super flavorful. While that was happening, I started on browning the butter. Full disclosure, vegan butter does not brown the exact same way as dairy butter, but it does get nutty and toasty and a lot more delicious, which is kind of the point. So maybe this should be called toasted butter peach cobbler, but that sounds weird, right? Once the butter starts to get foamy, give it another 2 minutes or so and stir frequently. That's pretty much it. And the batter could not be simpler. It's just all-purpose flour, rolled oats, cane sugar, baking powder, and salt. And then you just whisk in the liquid ingredients, which is simply full-fat oat milk, vanilla extract, and a tiny touch of almond extract, but only if you have it on hand. Rather than pouring the batter in all at once, I like to ladle the batter in 1 scoop at a time. It creates these ribbons of brown butter, which bake up into pockets of sticky, caramelized, crunchy goodness, which is, yes, as good as it sounds. And then you just add the blueberry peach mixture on top with all of the delicious juices. After 45 minutes in the oven, it smells so good, but unfortunately, I had to resist a little bit longer and let it cool down on a wire rack, but just for 10 minutes, so not that long. This is one of my favorite desserts ever. It's got the crunchy caramelized edges, but a soft, fluffy interior, and the peaches are like tart but sweet. I'll probably eat the whole pan if I leave it here, so I'm gonna slice them up and hand it out to my neighbors. I didn't really have a proper lunch today, so when dinner rolled around, I was very hungry. Thankfully, I had the pesto I prepped a few days ago and was able to put together a quick but gourmet pasta. While the water for the pasta was heating up, I broke down a couple of zucchinis. Basically, I sliced them into long slabs and charred them for a few minutes on each side in my cast iron skillet. Charring zucchini gives it a little smokiness, enhances the natural sweetness, and makes them perfectly tender. Since I didn't have an added protein source on hand for this dish, I decided to use this pasta, which is made from a mix of Italian wheat flour and lupini beans. I normally hate alternative protein pastas, like a lot. I refuse to eat them, but I gotta say this stuff is actually quite good and not that noticeably alternative. While the pasta cooked, I chopped up some of the other ingredients, some beautiful cherry tomatoes and their sister cousins, sun-dried tomatoes, for a little bit of a chewy umami punch. As soon as the pasta was al dente, I drained it, but not before I scooped out a little bit of pasta water. And I just basically put the pasta back into the pot with the leftover pesto I had, some lemon juice, nutritional yeast, and a little pasta water to bring everything together. This meal took about 20 minutes, and honestly, I am very impressed. You can get all of today's Casually Gourmet recipes in a free PDF guide. Just scan the QR code here or click the link in the description box below, and I'll see you later. Bye!